Saw you?
Yep.
Hi. How are you? Good to see you. Aloha. How you doing? Where is he? Oh, there he is. Hey, Jim. How's it going? Okay. Excellent. Yeah, I'm busy working it. Hello. How are you? Nice to see you. Ed Case. Nice to see you. How's it? Aloha. Hi. Good to see you. Oh, thank you.
Hi.
Hi. Good to see you. Thank you. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. You texting everybody? You're enjoying your time here? Hey, how's that? How are you? Good to see you. Aloha. Hi. How are you? Good to see you. Thank you. Good to see you again. Thank you. How's that, brother? How are you? Aloha.
Hi.
Hi. Good to
Nice
see you.
meeting you.
Nice to see you. Aloha. Good to see you. Thank you. How you doing? Aloha. Good to see you. I saw you already. I already gave you some trouble. Hi. Aloha. Good to see you. Aloha. Good to see you. How's that? Good to see you. Aloha. Thank you. Hey, Bixby. Hello. How are you? Ed Case. Good to see you. Very good. Thank you so much. Hi. Aloha. Hi. Good to see you. How's it, brother?
Good.
How are you? Hey, how's that? Well, you come to take some lessons, or no?
These guys are enforcing me to behave myself.
Are you turning around on purpose? Is that a silent protest?
I'm enjoying confusing you by laughing.
Oh, you guys decided to stay? Okay, good. You can slip out later. How's that? How are you? Good to see you. Hi, aloha. How are you? Good to see you. How's it? How are you? Aloha. How's it going? How are you doing? Good to see you. Aloha. Good to see you. Hi, good to see you. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Good to see you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Thank you. How's that? Good to see you again. Aloha.
Aloha.
How are you? Good to see you. Thanks.
Hi, Congressman.
Hi. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, thank you. How's that? Oh, hello. Can you hear me? Yeah. The folks, hey Anthony, can you hear me? Barely. Ma'am, in the way back corner, can you hear me? You can hear me, cool. All right. Let's go ahead. This is something that I have done regularly throughout my entire political career. Many of you have been to my talk stories. I think a couple of you actually came to my first one in 1994, maybe. But back when I was representing Manoa Valley. But I am very, very much looking forward to a discussion with you. Let me say what I think my goal is here tonight with these talk stories. And as you probably know, I'm doing 6 in the next 5 days. 5 in person, and then we're going to do 1 electronic talk story as well, where anybody that wants to call in can join us. If you want to hear the same thing again, or maybe not the same thing anymore, you're welcome to join that as well. But I've got 3 things that I want to achieve with you here tonight. The first is, I'm your congressman. I'm your only congressman, and I feel it's my obligation to report back to you on what's going on in your nation's capital, in your U.S. Congress, in your U.S. House. And that's a goal of mine, is to tell you what I think is going on. The second thing that I'm trying to achieve here tonight is to stand here in front of you. You can see that I don't operate my talk stories like many other politicians. There's nobody moderating the questions that are coming to me. I'm going to just stand here and answer your questions, and that's what we have the center aisle here for, is to for you to ask me your questions and for me to see how I can help you. And then the third, and maybe broader and most important thing in this critical time for our country, is to have a discussion with you. To talk through some of these issues, not just me talking and you talking and us kind of talking to and from each other, but to actually have a discussion like perhaps we would have around our kitchen table, assuming you wanted to cover some of the topics that are topical right now around your kitchen table. Could be dangerous, but hey, I'm hoping to have a discussion, and I'm hoping to do it, and I believe that we will have it in a little bit of a different way than is happening in Washington, D.C. right now, because I believe that we need to talk through these issues, tough as they are. Even if we disagree on them, at least we can discuss them civilly, and at least we can talk about them with at least one thing in common, and that is that we're all Americans. We all want the best thing for our country. So those are my goals here tonight. I'd like to start by telling you what I think my job is. Of course, my job is defined by the Constitution. I represent you in the U.S. House of Representatives, and my obligation is to vote in the U.S. House of Representatives, one of 435 members that vote in the U.S. House on the major issues of our country and our day. But that kind of breaks down into a couple of different categories. The first bucket in my job is to make decisions for our country and for you on national and international issues of the day that are before our U.S. Congress. So that's considering, deciding, discussing, and ultimately voting. So those are national and international issues. The second bucket in my job is how can I get our federal government to work better for Hawaii? Every single state, every single jurisdiction has some relationship with the federal government. And my job in that bucket is to make sure that the feds are doing the job right by us here. Some of that's appropriations, some of that's how federal programs work. The third part of my job is to help you with your individual concerns, whether it be Social Security benefits or immigration and a number of other areas, or sometimes just, can we help you with some information? Can we tell you about Washington? Can we host you in Washington? Can you come in and talk to me about an issue here in the district? So those are my three buckets. And I try to allocate my time and my staff's time between all of those buckets. And so I'm going to try to give you a little bit of an overview of each of those areas. I have a number of tools available to me in my office. First of all, I've already talked about my great staff. They are partners with me. They all know Hawaii very, very intimately. And they all are getting to know many, many of our community groups, organizations, and people, and others throughout our district. I have a unique ability as a U.S. representative, a member of Congress, and that is my business is anything having to do with any government, anything, anywhere in the country. Essentially, I can ask almost any question and it's relevant to my job. And I use that tool to go out and get answers to things that I don't understand or that you don't understand. So that's a valuable tool of mine. And then third are my committees, because every member of Congress is assigned to committees where you tend to focus your time and become a specialist in. And I was very, very fortunate this time around in Congress to have two great committees. One is the Appropriations Committee, one of the most influential committees in Congress, basically because it controls the money. The Appropriations Committee divvies up about $1.4 trillion of federal funding every year across our entire government. And so that's a critical responsibility. And it gives me the entree, if I can put it that way, into every place in government, because every place needs money. So I get to ask, about how's the money spent, and should we be spending this here, and should we be spending it there? And of course, that's pretty valuable for not only your country and indispensable, but also for your state. So that's been a great tool. And then the Natural Resources is my second committee. The Natural Resources is what it sounds like. It has jurisdiction over all of our environmental, natural resources, federal lands, water, air. It also has jurisdiction over all of our non-state parts of our country. So the territories, to include the compact countries of Micronesia, Palau, and the Marshall Islands. It also has jurisdiction over the indigenous peoples of our country. So it has jurisdiction over all Native Hawaiian-related concerns at the federal level. So it's an invaluable tool, and it's a responsibility that I welcome. And finally, of course, in the tool department is the folks that I represent who are not at all shy about telling me what they think, which I welcome. Let's cover the first bucket, national issues. And let's get right to it, impeachment. Let me say first that I think it's a sad day for our country when I have to stand before you and talk about impeachment. And when I know that throughout the country right now, during this district work period, my colleagues are having this conversation with the people that they represent also. Whether they're Democrats or Republicans or independents, whatever they feel about anything else, they have to and should be standing in front of the folks that they represent and talk about impeachment. And that is a solemn task. It's not a happy task. It's nothing I signed up for. I didn't sign up to go back to Congress to talk about impeachment 9 months later. And yet, here we are. And so I feel an obligation to tell you what I think. And I feel a need to hear from you as to what you think in whatever way you want to express it to me, because I have big decisions to make in the coming months on your behalf, as do many, many members of Congress. Forgive me if I kind of go back to the basics, but I feel I should start with the basics. And the basics, of course, to me, start with our Constitution. And this is kind of Civics 101, but it's worth talking a little bit about, I think, to come through the discussion of impeachment. First of all, of course, we all know we have three branches of government. They're supposed to operate as a check and balance on each other. Each of those branches is a separate, independent, and co-equal branch of government, meaning that I, as a member of Congress, are separate from the administration and the president. I'm independent. I'm not responsible to the president. I'm not accountable to the president. Do I want to help the president? Of course I do. Any president. But I'm not there to do the president's bidding, and I'm co-equal. The president is not my superior. The president has a heck of a lot of power because it's all centralized in one person. But the executive branch has the same amount of power and responsibility as the legislative branch. Now, we have a mechanism for handling disagreements with what our president does and doesn't do, or for that matter, members of Congress. We have a mechanism for handling differences in style. Maybe we just don't like the way he or she talks. That mechanism is called an election. A mechanism of an election is where we make decisions on policy issues, where we make decisions on style issues, where we make decisions on direction issues, where we make decisions on competence and capability issues. That's an election, and that should be reserved to the American people. But our founding fathers recognized that there were going to come times, or could come times, in which there was something else at stake, and that was the Constitution itself. And they recognized that in those cases, the remedy of an election may not be sufficient, where the disagreements were not over policy, style, direction, but over the fundamental oath of office, the fundamental obligations to the Constitution. And they wrote into our Constitution that remedy of impeachment. And let's just define what impeachment is, because I find that people are still confused about this. When I use the word impeachment, I refer to the House, the United States House, deciding to charge a president with quote-unquote high crimes and misdemeanors under the Constitution. But the House, of course, does not decide whether the president's to be removed. The Senate decides that. The Senate decides in a trial whether the president should be removed. So impeachment has some stages to it. The first stage is that the House, and the House is the only place that can make this decision, the House decides whether it will proceed with an inquiry which may lead to impeachment. That's the first stage. Second stage, the House, if it decides to recommend impeachment, it votes on impeachment. And that vote is a majority vote. And that's the action of charging the president. If the House does that, the next stage is the Senate must convene a trial to decide whether to, just like a jury, what its decision is going to be. And the fourth stage is the Senate makes a decision on that, and that decision has to be approved by a 2/3 vote. There's a lot of checks and balances built into that stage. But it's, of course, a unique and extreme remedy, not to be played with lightly. We've only done impeachment 3 times in our history. Once in the 1800s and twice in the 1900s. So, we've been through a lot of presidents, a lot of difficulties, a lot of very difficult times. We've hardly ever done this. And so, obviously, it's a major decision and a major responsibility. Now, for me, personally, I was one of those who, for many months, believed that we should investigate and provide oversight of this president, but not that we should go in the direction of an impeachment inquiry. And there were 2 reasons for that, from my perspective. Number one, I didn't feel I had all of the facts I needed to proceed in that direction. And I wanted the courts to decide that the president and his administration needed to give me those facts. And number two, I couldn't therefore make a decision if I thought I didn't have enough facts. And I felt that it was not a sufficient amount of information for me to call for impeachment at that point. For me, that changed very recently with the Ukraine situation. And I will tell you what I think the questions are before us right now. The first question, and these are factual questions. The first question is, did our president ask a foreign leader to investigate a political opponent for the president's own political gain? That's number one question. Number two question, did the president leverage that foreign leader to enter into that investigation by withholding foreign aid, military aid, that Congress had already appropriated and the president had already approved? Number three, did the president interfere with, obstruct, a legitimate proceeding by a whistleblower under law? Under law, and I'll get into that. And number four, did the president, by his conduct, obstruct Congress's obligation to oversee the president and to get to the bottom of what happened? Those are the questions that I think are before us right now. And I think that if the answer to those questions is yes, then that implicates the president's obligations to the Constitution. I think it certainly implicates national security, because among other reasons, Ukraine is kind of like the Berlin Wall of yesterday. It's the absolute center of a much broader disagreement between Russia on the one hand and Europe and our country on the other hand. And so it's very delicate what we do with Ukraine right now. And Ukraine is our ally, by the way. And we are depending on Ukraine in many ways. So if the president is going to hold back $400 million of aid for his own political gain, that, I believe, is an abuse of power, is a betrayal of constitutional duties, and is a national security risk. And in that case, I believe impeachment would be appropriate. However, I believe that we have to get those facts first. So I have not myself prejudged my vote on impeachment. I believe strongly, as every day goes by and I get more information, that it is appropriate for us to consider this narrow set of facts and circumstances from the perspective of potential impeachment. So I don't think that we should be wandering all over the place on this. I believe we have to focus on Ukraine and the facts in the Ukraine situation, and we have to go out and get those facts. And if the president won't produce those facts or obstruct us in getting those facts, then we need to go to the courts, get the facts. And if the president continues to obstruct in that case, then we're talking about an additional grounds for potential removal from office, because that represents a disrespect ultimately of Congress's obligations and duties. So that's where I've come to very, very difficult decision. But obviously, when we get to Q&A, or if you want to fill out your form, I would love to hear from you, because I represent you, and I really should be taking a lot of my lead from you. Now,
you talked about appropriations, but you didn't talk about the flip side of that equation, which is the national debt is approaching $23 trillion. And I think that's a difficult number for a lot of people to understand, so let me express it in slightly different terms. Your average family of four, their share of the national debt is now over $275,000. That's like paying another mortgage. The difference is most of your homeowners are actually paying down their mortgages, whereas the federal government is not paying down the national debt, it is adding to it. And it's adding at an alarming rate. I think Congress is wasting its time every few months, raising the debt ceiling yet again, continuing resolution after continuing resolution, rather than actually having a budget in place. In my opinion, the biggest threat to the country is not China, it's not North Korea, Russia, Iran, not even climate change. I think the biggest threat is our own Congress's inability to balance the budget. I think we're headed for a financial crisis. You saw what happened in Greece. There is no larger economy to bail us out. If we default on our debt, it's going to be a global crisis. How do you want to address the national debt?
Sure. Well, first of all, we're very much on the same page. And I would very, very much encourage you to, again, go to my website and take a look at some of my speeches having to do with the debt and the deficit. In fact, I put on the floor of the House, I spoke for 1 hour on this exact subject on the floor of the House about 8 weeks ago. And that entire speech is on my website. You can find it. I would ask you to view that and ask whether we're not on the same page. So that's number one. So the problem is critical. I agree with you. When I left Congress in 2006, first time around, our total national debt was $9 trillion. You are correct that we're now closing in on $23 trillion. So if you can't grasp all of those zeros, then think about going from 9 to 23 in that very short period of time. That's a significant increase. Number one. Number two, our annual deficit just passed $1 trillion. 11 months of the last fiscal year. It'll probably close out somewhere around 1.1 trillion. The only other time in our history that we've had a deficit, an annual deficit in that level, was early in the Iraq War. When we had the combination of materially increased military expenses combined with a tax cut at the same time, without any balancing of the budget. So I agree with you that it is a critical issue. I agree with you that it is not just an issue for our national finances, but it is a national security issue, because as I believe you know, a lot of that money is borrowed from other countries, to include China. So I believe this is critical. So what do we do about it? Well, a couple of different things. First of all, I'm a co-sponsor of a balanced budget amendment, similar to what we have right here in Hawaii. In fact, I'm the co-introducer of it. So in Hawaii, people don't know this, we have a balanced budget requirement in our Constitution. It's got safety nets, safety valves for if we're in emergencies, and you can do it. It just takes a supermajority vote, but it's in our Constitution. There's really no reason why we can't do the same thing at a national level. Number one. Number two, I believe in what's referred to as PAYGO. PAYGO is a procedure under which you have to be budget neutral in your legislating. So for example, if we increased appropriations this year, then to be budget neutral on those appropriation increases, we should either reduce spending somewhere else and or increase revenues somewhere else, so that the net result is not to accelerate the deficit and the debt. And we have strayed away from PAYGO. And then number three, and this is a difficult one for me, but I completely agree with you on our federal governments. So I'm not going to indict Congress only. I'll indict Congress and administrations, Republican and Democrat, for about the last 20 years, because the last time we balanced our budget was 2000, under Clinton and a Republican Congress, as a matter of fact. But I think that we need a little bit of external help to balance our budget. That's in the nature of a commission, which we've tried before, and they've come up with, well, this is how you're going to balance it, and you've got to vote yes or no on the whole package. We got pretty close 5-7 years ago. I think we've got to go in that direction again. I'm going to be introducing that bill when I go back to Congress in October. We've got major challenges. Challenges that we're only starting to even get a glimpse of: artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data. These present new opportunities and risks that obviously people who wrote our Constitution never really contemplated, although they did contemplate power. They contemplated the nature of power, and they contemplated the nature of how to check it, and they contemplated the nature of how to make the best decisions. And so my guarded optimism is because we've been through comparable situations before. For example, the robber barons of the late 1800s, where we had incredible monopolies and far greater centralizations of power than anything we have today, and wealth. And yet we found a way to pass a graduated income tax and a estate tax and the Sherman Antitrust Act. And I have guarded optimism that our institutions can survive and deal with it, because I think the foundations and values are sound to start with. However, we've also seen that I think the instincts of the American people are good, but we can be manipulated. And so our choice of leaders is very important. And maybe that's where we should leave it tonight. Thank you so much for a great talk story. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good.
Yeah, so far so good.
Busy.
Okay.
That's life. Still moving.
How you been? I just ran into one of your neighbors or somebody the other day.
Tono Uchi,
Oh, really? Yeah.
the Okinawan princess
Yeah.
author. He says, oh, it was...
Oh, that's who it was.
Blah, blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah,
yeah,
blah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I guess he was showing me a picture of it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. How you doing? Good to see you.
Oh, pretty good, sir. How are you?
Nice to see you. Thanks for coming. How's that? Aloha.
Adam Morrow.
You put James back in the day.
Hi. Aloha. How are you? Good to see you. Hi. Good to see you. Hi. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Hi. How are you? Aloha. Thanks for coming. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hi. Aloha. How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
How's that? How are you doing, man? Yeah, good to see you. Aloha. How's it been?
Good.
Yeah? Everything okay?
Yes.
All right.
I wanted to catch you in the district, so.
Yeah. Let's go ahead. It's not too far after 6:30. Good to go? All right. Good evening. Aloha, first of all. Thank you so much. Mahalo for joining me at another one of my talk stories in this particular series. I'm home for 2 weeks from Washington, D.C., and I think it's a pretty good time for me to check in with you. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I've got 5 in-person talk stories across my district, which again is Hawaii's first congressional district, which is basically the city of Honolulu, or urban Honolulu really. Starts at Makapu'u Point out in East Honolulu, comes all the way through the leeward side of the Ko'olau up to Mililani Mauka, the edge of Wahiawa, back down through Waipahu, Ewa Beach, and Ko'olina, all the way out to Kahe Point. So that is what I am responsible for, and we're working our way right through the district this week with talk stories, 5 of them, and then we're going to do 1 electronic talk story on Monday night to try that out and see if that works for the folks that can't make these talk stories. I've got 3 goals tonight with you. The number 1 goal that I have, not in priority by the way, is to simply report back to you on what I'm doing in Washington, what's happening in Washington, what is happening in your nation's capital. We have some very, very big and difficult issues that we're dealing with, and I'm going to take them straight on and talk about them. The number 2 thing I want to do here is to listen to you. I want to answer your questions, and I want to find out how my office and I might be able to help you and your communities. And then number 3, I hope to have a discussion with you. I hope that this is a two-way conversation, not just me talking to you and you talking back to me, but to have an interchange, because I think that discussions like this are so incredibly important in a democracy in general, and they're so incredibly important, especially when your country is going through a tough time.
My suggestion and hope and desire is that we get through this as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because I can't see a successful outcome of it.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Like I said, I think about it every day, every minute, you know. I don't know what happened today. I don't know the substance of what happened today. And I'll say again that I hope that the direction being taken right now is very focused, deliberate, objective, and inclusive and transparent. I've said all of that already. Because if we do have to go through this process, and we do want to do it for the right reasons and minimize the negative consequences from it. And of course it's going to have a consequence.
Exactly. You seem to be wanting to bring the people together as opposed to separating them even more. I don't see a route that would do anything, anything like that.
All right, well, thank you. This is a great talk story. I really appreciate this. A lot of different... Jackie, do you have a question? Doing?
There he is.
Aloha. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, give me a little hug here. When you give me a lei, you got to give me a hug. Oh, wow, that's a lot of popcorn. Cool. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Wait, I've got a... Hi, Ed Case. Nice to see you. Aloha. How are you? What's your guys' names? What's your name?
My name is Kainoa.
Kainoa.
My name is Makoa.
Nakoa.
Okay. My name is Sawyer.
Sawyer.
My name is Jackson.
Jackson.
My name is Ryder.
Ryder.
My name is Jazz.
Jazz. Okay.
My name's Ella.
Nice to meet you.
My name's Carter.
Carter. Wow.
We are Pack 101.
Pack 101. How's that? How are you?
Hey, how you doing?
All right.
Nice to meet you.
Who else is in your pack here? Hi. Aloha.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Kelly Holden.
Hi, Kelly. Hi.
I'm Carol Duran.
Hi, Carol.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, aloha.
How you doing?
Good to see you.
We are here to earn Building a Better World badge for the Weeblos, and we wanted to learn about your job and what you do in House of Representatives,
Right.
and how it can affect the community.
Right. Okay. So let me just get some things straight. So how old are you all, roughly?
10 to 11.
10 to 11, and you're, I'm sorry, Webelos right now?
Yes.
Okay, Webelos. Okay. So how much do you all know about the United States Congress?
They approve bills and then send them to the president.
And but what are those bills?
Trying to be laws.
They're laws. That's right. And what kind of laws? Do they govern everybody in Honolulu or in Hawaii, in the whole United States? So the job of the United States Congress is to pass laws that may impact everybody in our country, so 300 plus million. So they would apply just as much to Hawaii as they would to New York or to Alaska or to Guam. And that is one of the jobs of the United States Congress. And what's the other job of the United States Congress? Very relevant to right now. Something about a check and balance? Does that sound familiar? How many branches of government do we have? Three. And what are they? Go.
Judicial.
Judicial is one of them.
Executive.
Executive is one of them.
And
The one I'm in. Legislative, right? So we have three branches of government, and where does it say that all of this is set up this way? Yeah.
Declaration.
No, that declaration is a good guess, but there's another one. Constitution. So the declaration was when we all said we want to form our own country. We want to be independent of Britain. But then we had to figure out, after we won that war, we had to figure out, well, how are we going to actually govern ourselves? And you remember that at the time we had a king over in England that we didn't like. That's why we declared our independence. And so we wanted to say that we wanted to govern ourselves, and we didn't want any one person to have all of the power in our country. And so what we did was we set up three branches of government, and we all try to work together, but we all act as a check on the other branch if we think that other branch is not doing the right thing. And that way, nobody gets all of the power and nobody gets kind of caught up in all of that power and does things that are against the interests of the country. And so if Congress does something that the president doesn't like, the president has his or her check and balance, right? The president can always say, I don't agree with the law you just passed. And the president is always subject to Congress because Congress can oversee the president. And then, of course, the judges can sit there and say whether they think we both followed the Constitution or not. So everybody's got a role. So my role is in Congress. And so I've got really two jobs. I've got the first job of trying to figure out what kind of laws we should pass for our country, our entire country. And my job is also to act as a check and balance on the president. Okay, it's good to see you again. Thanks. Hey, Kendrick, how you doing, man? Good to see you. Hi, aloha. Good to see you. Thank you for coming. Okay, got the gang here. Hi, aloha. How are you? Thank you. Hi. Let's see.
This is my eye doctor.
Yeah, we met outside. Hi, Ed Case.
How are you?
How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah.
Aloha. Thank you. How'd it go? See you. Thanks. Hey, how are you? Ed Case? Nice to see you.
Spending time with us.
Yeah, no problem.
What'd your dad do on the Big Island?
What did my dad do?
Yeah,
He's a lawyer.
You grew up there.
He was a lawyer. Yeah. He practiced for 63 years. Get started, and good evening, aloha, first of all. It's so great to be back with you in East Honolulu. I've done talk stories in East Honolulu, both in campaigns and during my congressional responsibilities, and I've personally walked many of your neighborhoods, and it's a real joy to be back. And I'm looking forward to spending a couple of really great hours with you here tonight, talking about many important issues for our country and for Hawaii. First of all, I want to welcome Boy Scout Pack 101. So you see them all around here. Thank you so much for coming. They are here to earn their one of their badges, and I got a pretty good grilling outside beforehand. You might have seen them holding me accountable outside. So that's good practice. So we'll see whether you hold me more accountable than they did. We'll find out that shortly. Hey, I've got 3 goals here tonight, pretty straightforward, but I think they're critical to the workings of our democracy. The first goal I have is simply to report back to you on what's happening in Congress and your nation's capital. From my perspective, I am your U.S. representative. I'm your only U.S. representative. My district, again, is the 1st Congressional District. The 1st Congressional District starts at Makapu'u Point and ends at Kahi Point. On the other side of this island, goes up to Mililani. Within the 1st Congressional District live 710,000 or so people for whom I am your representative. And I think that it is critical for me to report back to you on my perceptions and to try to get a sense, give you a sense of what I'm dealing with in Washington. The second is that this is an opportunity for you to ask me whatever you want and communicate whatever you want, provide me whatever input you want. I don't run moderated talk stories, as you can tell. There's not going to be somebody here sifting through your, written questions and deciding which one is too tough for me. The mic is there. You can say whatever you want, and we will have that discussion. The only thing I would ask you is to try to ask me a question rather than go on for a long time. You can do that if you want, but there'll probably be people behind you that will be upset. And the third thing that I'm trying to do, I'm just trying to have a discussion. I can talk to you about what's happening and you can ask me your questions and I can answer them, but I would prefer to have more of an interchange with you. We have critical issues to deal with, and I think that I hope that this would be beneficial for you, but I can tell you for me, when I spend 6 months out of the year in Washington, 5 months is back home, and 1 month on a plane, by the way, when you add it all up. I need to stay in touch like this, letters and emails can do part of that job, but if I have to make a vote in 1 hour, and I need to kind of think that one through right away, if an amendment comes out of nowhere at me, I need to have a pretty good pulse of what's happening back home. So this is invaluable, again, for the workings of our government. I'm doing 6 of these this cycle. working my way right through the first congressional, 5 of them in person, and then 1 electronic talk story. We're gonna give that a try where anybody can get on the phone, and you're welcome to get back on the phone on Monday night if you haven't heard enough tonight, although you probably hear about the same thing from me, but you may hear some other questions. Contrary to the media, again, we are doing something in Washington other than simply considering impeachment. In fact, we have been doing that throughout this year. We have been legislating in the House of Representatives. We have passed out a number of bills that I think are invaluable pieces of legislation. They include, for example, H.R. 1, the very, very first bill that was introduced into Congress that I co-introduced and that I talked about during my campaign last year, which was our campaign spending and our campaign financing and our lobbying laws were being subverted such that most of the American people were essentially being left out of the decision-making process. And how could we fix that to bring more Americans back into our process? This is the most sweeping campaign spending, finance, lobbying reform bill in about a generation. It's passed out of the House. It's not being considered yet in the Senate. I hope it will be considered in the Senate.
Hi.
Hi.
Hawaii unfortunately has one of the highest costs of living in the United States. And I think everyone in this room would agree we would like to keep costs down, right? Okay, so we are all subject to the 99-year-old Jones Act. I don't know how many people in this room know much about it, but I would like to know what you're doing, because I've heard some little hints here and there that you're taking a position on the Jones Act, and what would that be and why? Thank
Well,
you.
Sam and I were the only 2 members of the legislature that were trying to take on the Jones Act, so you got my partner in crime right over there. So let's lay this out just a little bit more. The Jones Act is as you point out, 99-year-old federal law passed in 1920. And what it says in short is that if you transit goods, if you ship goods between 2 U.S. ports, you have to use U.S. flagged shipping that is built in the United States, is crewed by U.S. crews, and is flagged in the United States, subject to U.S. law. And the justification, the argument for the Jones Act at the time was to maintain a strong merchant marine shipyard capability in our country from a economic as well as national security perspective. Frankly, I think the reason for it was pure protectionism, but that justification was there. And as a result, you have to comply with that law. Now, if you take, let's give the example of a shipment of wheat from Minneapolis, Minnesota, down the Mississippi River to New Orleans, because that wheat is destined for an overseas destination, perhaps. That's a Jones Act leg. It's from one U.S. port to another U.S. port. So it has to be on a Jones Act ship. But if that Jones Act ship is not charging a fair price, then I can take my wheat and take a train, I can take a truck, I can take a bus, I can get it by ground. But we don't have that option. And so what happens is that the Jones Act can be disastrous to an island economy if the shipping company gains a monopoly over the shipping lanes, because then our costs do jack up. And that has happened. We have effectively a monopoly. We've got Matson. They've been the Jones Act shipper for a long time. They bring in almost all of our stuff from Oakland, California. This is not just what you buy in the grocery store, by the way. Think of anything here. This was a Jones Act shipment, no doubt. The lights were a Jones Act shipment. The lumber were a Jones Act shipment. Everything here. And so if that shipper can charge a higher price than really is justified on a cost plus reasonable profit basis, that's going to hurt. Now, we don't feel it as much, or at least that's the argument. Well, it only costs you a couple, $100 a year to maintain the Jones Act. Well, add that to 700,000 on million for people, and you've got a real impact. By some accounts, the cost of the Jones Act imposes an extra price of somewhere around 10, maybe 15, maybe even higher percent on the cost of goods here over what it should be or could be if we had more competition. Now, that competition would come from a surplus of foreign shippers who are perfectly willing to come in here and compete with Matson. The argument about maintaining an American, domestic merchant marine, et cetera, it's actually far less of a merchant marine today under the Jones Act than it ever was, declining further. So there's fewer and fewer ships still servicing the same Jones Act demand. What do you think that's going to do to the prices? Jack them up. So I have believed, and by the way, you can test the hypothesis by simply going to the store in Los Angeles, buying a jar of peanut butter or whatever it is at X price, and try to buy that same jar here and see what your differential is. There's no difference other than shipping. So that's how you can run a pretty quick gut check on this. So what I've said, I said this the last time I was in Congress, what I've said is, okay, fine. If the rest of the country wants to deal with the Jones Act, that's your business, but let my Hawaii free. And I still believe that, so I'm still moving in that direction. The other thing that I'm doing at the same time is saying, okay, fine. If you want to keep the Jones Act, that's fine, but we're going to cap the amount you can charge over what it would cost if you used international shipping. So in other words, you can have a little bit of a profit, but you can't gouge. Now, Mattsson's very, very mad at me about this. In fact, Mattson has been one of my most vociferous political opponents throughout my years. But it's clear to me what we need to be doing. So I'm going down that road. That's the Jones Act.
Thank you.
Good morning. Hi. Aloha. Ed Case. Good to see you. Hi. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. Thank you. How are you all doing? Aloha. Ed Case. How are you? Aloha. How are you? Ed Case. Nice to see you. Where's your survey? Oh, he needs his own, man. Okay. We welcome everybody's opinion. Thank you so much for spending your Saturday morning with your United States Congress, courtesy of me. I am your congressman. I represent the 1st Congressional District. Just to refresh your memory, the 1st Congressional, we have 2 in Hawaii, 2 congressional districts. I have one of those 2. I represent about 710,000 of you. And my district starts at Makapu'u on the east end of this island, comes all the way through the leeward side, comes up as far as the fringes of Wahiawa right up here. So I have all of Mililani Mauka, goes back down through Waipahu, and then Makai of the freeway, all the way through Ewa Beach, Kapolei out to Kahe Point. So it's described as urban Honolulu. I don't feel like I'm in urban Honolulu right here. But that's the description that people use. In any event, I'm really happy to be with you here. This is another one of my talk stories, which I do regularly. I did 4 or 5 beginning of this year, and then this is an opportunity to come to some different communities to give you an opportunity to talk with me and for me to talk with you.
Civic engagement doesn't exist. What we do is we have people proselytizing, and they're having, manifestation of identity politics. So given that, and the experiment that democracy is, are you guys looking, or are you maybe looking at any way to kind of prepare for the inability to actually kind of reach consensus?
No, I'm trying to reach consensus, and I'm trying to foster civic engagement. I think this is civic engagement.
Okay.
I think my talk stories are civic engagement. I don't think it gets as pure as this. I mean, here I am, your rep. We're talking right here. I try to engage the people that I represent every day through newsletters, through talk stories, through phone call, whatever it is, through videos, through social media. So I believe in civic engagement. And I think that where I can, and I believe that we can make systematic changes that foster civic engagement, but I also think that it is up to me to model that behavior, as I spoke about earlier, where at least in my little kuleana of one of 435 representative districts throughout the country, I can believe in civic engagement and encourage it in some small way. So that's my personal commitment to it. So no, I'm not at all trying to prepare for a world of permanent division. I'm trying to escape a world of permanent division, or avoid it. And I think we can do that, by the way. And I think I'm going to end on this. I think that it's up to the American people to make that call, because the American people obviously don't like what's happening in Washington, D.C. And so it's up to the American people in each of those 435 districts to make this an issue and say, how are you ask the same question you just asked me, make your call. If you don't like what's happening inside of Washington, D.C. with your rep, vote them out. If you can find another person that believes in civic engagement and talks the language of a better way forward, as I've tried to do, then vote that person in, take a chance on that person. So I'm going to end there. I think that's about as good a place as I can. Thank you very much. We've had a full day, so I apologize for being a little bit late. We had our talk story in Mililani this morning, and then I promised the Gandhi Institute for Peace. This is actually the 150th anniversary of the birth of Mohandas Gandhi now. And they celebrate his birthday every day, but every year. But this was, of course, 150 years since he was born in Gujarat, India. And so I promised I'd go down there and spend time with them. So we went from Mililani to Waikiki, where, of course, they're having a quite big day in Waikiki, and navigated traffic and back out here. So it's a pretty standard day for me. But I'm happy to have some time with you here to talk about our country, talk about my work in Washington, and to give you an opportunity to ask me whatever questions you have. I have three basic goals. My first goal is to report back to you. I have a very big and diverse district. Just to kind of get you, refresh your memory, Hawaii has 2 members of the U.S. House of Representatives. I represent the 1st district. The 1st district runs from Makapu'u on the far east of this island all the way up to the fringes of Wahiawa, so all of Mililani, Mauka, right to Wahiawa, then back down through Waipahu, all of Ewa Beach, Kapolei, out to Kahe Point. That's my district. So it's a big district. There are 700,000 people in that district, and a very diverse district. So for me, moving around my district to stay in touch, I'm in Washington about 6 months every year, if you want to add it up. Sometimes people ask me, where do I spend my time? 6 months of a year in Washington or somewhere else in the world. About 5 months here in Hawaii, 1 month on a plane, traveling from one place to the other. And so for me, it's valuable for me to report back to you. But then second, I'm trying to answer your questions, and absorb your input. And then third, I just want to have a discussion, because this is a time of great tension in our country, in our world, in our Hawaii. And for me to stay in touch with you is really critical. So that's my goal here. You should all have received a mailer from me, which came about a couple of weeks ago, which has a bunch of information in it, as well as my schedule. If you didn't get this, let us know. We have some extras in the back. I also have just a printout report that I put out periodically. This is our current one on various issues, and the interesting part of this, to me at least, is we usually kind of run a basic stat, kind of what have we done in various categories every 3 months or so. So this is our most recent one, because I've just finished my 9th month representing you. So, how many meetings have I had? 867. Hard to believe that, but it feels that way. 555 votes on the floor of the House, 187,000 miles flown, so back to spending time in the air. Also a handout with some basic information on my office and me. Most valuable here is how to get in touch with us. We have tried to, and keep in touch with us. We've tried to provide as many avenues as we can. And then finally, to me most important, a survey of this talk story. I would really, really appreciate your filling this out and handing it in at the end, so we can get a gut check on how you're feeling about not only this talk story, but other issues. There's a place there to fill out your name and contact information. I'd appreciate that. We can get in touch with you, but I'd much rather get your survey. So if you're uncomfortable putting your name in, please just hand it in without your name. It's not one of those, asterisk, you have to put your name in things. And I ask you some basic stuff. I mean, what overall grade would you give to my event? So A, B, C, D, F. It's pretty stark grading process there, so let us know what you think. What did you like about it? What did you not like? How can I improve it? I do these a lot, and I always think I can improve them. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. What are the most important issues facing our country and facing our Hawaii? I'm going to talk about impeachment. That's obviously the most critical issue facing our country. It's the most critical decision facing me, not only this year, but in my political career to date, and likely to be one of the most critical, if not the most critical decisions I'll ever have to make. And I want to know what you think. So I'm going to talk about it, and then I want to get your feedback, not only in your questions, if you want to talk about it there, but also on the survey. What do you want to hear more from me about, and do you have any other questions? So I would really appreciate that. That would help us out a great deal. Kind of a quick survey, you know, kind of a gut check survey on my own right now about where everybody heard about this event from. So how many heard about it from our paper mailer? Okay. How many heard about it from an email newsletter from me? Okay, about a third on the paper, about a third, maybe a little less on the email, and then advertising in the paper. All three. Okay. Okay. All three. Social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Okay, and then just word of mouth. Somebody told you about it. Nobody. So one person. So we've got mostly the paper stuff still works pretty well to get to people, and then a fair bit on the email side. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. This was a great talk story. Many great thoughts. I appreciate everybody so much. I look forward to staying in touch with you, and I am very honored to represent you for at least the next 15 months. Thank you. Hey, how's it, brother? How are you doing, man?
Good. How you doing?
Thanks for all of your posts, your very kind posts. I follow you around all over the place. You
I've been in touch with their office.
Yeah, I know that. They include me on all that stuff, so I'm following it. So we see
which one is more tougher? Have a talk stories here, or the Congress have a debate?
Here. Hey, how's it? All right. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Thanks. Hi.
I'm Eric. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for having this. I missed the one at George Washington Middle School. So
okay.
But